Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are here in this newest installment of PMOTV, and today I have a very special guest. I know with a lot of the things that kind of going on today's climate when it comes to racial politics, and now eventually we might come to one of the most impactful elections of all time. I just like to kind of just broaden the horizon and also to touch on different pockets of people that that add into the melting pot that the American process so much into being a part of. So of course I have Miss Vanessa Gonzalez today, very very special guest. As I do my research, I had learned some things as I did my own personal research, but I think I'm gonna let the conversation like blossom into with the questions I do. I see we had a lot of similarities now. We'll tackle it as the conversation goes on. But today I introduce y'all Miss
Okay.
Vanessa Gonzalez of Miss Gonzalez Law. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I know I got you up here early this morning, but I'm forever grateful for your time. For sure. Time is definitely precious, and I don't take no time for granted.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. I know. It's funny, kind of know, like, when we say, like, one little spot, so, like, you never know who you pass every single day or who you pass at certain events and everything. So, of course, I remember we definitely connected over the last couple of, like, 3OW events. I believe, like, the sweater party last time I remember, like, seeing you, and those, we always had a good vibe and everything. But, of course, even like we have mixtures for like young professionals, it's always good to dive into like the professional side of things. So with that being started, I just kind of want to just highlight you and highlight you and everything you do. But of course, every journey starts from the beginning. So I kind of want to take it back a little bit about like where you're from, like your cultural background, your educational background, and I see how did you get into law.
Okay. I'm gonna
I'm sorry.
try to give an abridged version.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm I've got ADHD and I'm an attorney, so I tend to be really long-winded. Like if you ask me a story, I'll start from the minute I was born and then there's like 3 detours. I'm gonna do my best to be respectful of time. Where I'm from is a bit of a strange question for me because I'm military brat. So I say I'm from Jacksonville, North Carolina, and that confuses people because when you're a military brat, there's the like where were you born / where were you from. I say Jacksonville because that's where I came up. My mom is from Long Island, New York, and my dad is from Wisconsin, and they both joined the military right after high school, met, immediately had kids because that's the military lifestyle. Married within a few months, popped out babies immediately. I grew up on a island of Japan called Okinawa, where I lived on a military base through all of elementary school, and so it came to the United States. Feels like the first time because I was very young when we moved to Japan, right before middle school, so late fourth grade. Uh, Back to Jacksonville, North Carolina, where I lived until I left for college. Ethnic background, I am a white woman. And sometimes I go out of my way to remind people of that up front because the Gonzalez and being bilingual and the work that I do in the community sometimes confuses people. And I want to make sure that I don't stumble into an unintentional Rachel Dolezal situation because people presume Latinidad from the Gonzalez. And I am divorced, thus my maiden name is Smart. And I go out of my way to let people know that because oftentimes I'm invited to participate in things. So people say, oh, we need diversity on this board. And I'm like, well, it's not very diverse over here, but let me point you in the direction of somebody more. Uh, and So I'm a fake Southerner, but I kind of grew up in Eastern North Carolina, but I don't come from Southern heritage or Southern cultural background either. And it's a little bit of an amalgamation of growing up in really diverse. Anybody who grew up in military communities is aware that I had a bit of a blessing of more diversity than most people growing up in Eastern North Carolina, rural areas, normally gets to experience.
Trust me, man, we have love for the military over here. I know. My father was in the military for many years. He was in the military during the Ronald Reagan era, and he was just like, yeah, this is not military. So that's very
Yeah.
a much different time zone for sure compared to the presidency. And also, with me being
And that
with me being Yeah, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I mean, cut you off.
Yeah, I was gonna say that other how did I get into law? And same as what your pop said. My parents being in the Marines were like, y'all are not going into the military. You're going to college. We can't afford it. So you better get the grades. My sister and I are both first generation college students, just kind of off the force of that, of, of our parents being like, you're not about to go to the military at 18 because that's all that we had. Um, and I got a merit-based full ride to UNC Pembroke for undergrad, where I got bachelor's degrees in both poli-sci and Spanish. And then at the urging of some of my mentors and professors there, I carried on to law school. I didn't really have a concept of law school or becoming a lawyer. It wasn't like a lifelong dream or anything. It was sort of realizing that what I thought a bachelor's degree would do, by the time I attained it, I realized that really wasn't. It was people graduating with a bunch of student debt and, you know, getting paid minimum wage, and that there was not this great socioeconomic mobility that was sold to us in high school, right? Out of simply having a bachelor's.
Absolutely.
So I just kind of like kept on going because I was not about to go back to Jacksonville and when I graduated at 21. So I kind of just sort of applied to law schools and then showed up like Legally Blonde style, like, oh, but it's hard. but then it just kept going.
Yeah, trust and believe. We can definitely tackle that off more offline, definitely. But that was fun because as I was doing my research, I did see that Pembroke was on your resume. And, you know, I'm a class of 2016 myself, so I completely get it. Um, and also, yeah, shout out to be
So
that
what
first gen college
there,
student. You said that one more time.
I said you went there when it was good.
You
I've
said when
been
it was
there
good, man.
recently. I've been there recently for some alumni stuff, and it is not the same city. I'm class of '07, so they were just building the McDonald's and the Walmart when I was there. There wasn't a football team. It
Yeah, it's
was
funny
a
now.
different place.
Oh yeah, and it's funny now when I think about it because I think when I was in high school, I remember like I like older. For some reason, I always gravitated like to older people. Maybe because I'm the oldest, like my mom's kids, and I was like one people who's older than me to kind of like help navigate certain things, especially as like a high schooler. But also, like, I remember like I had really like befriended like this older like senior, and he's like, man, I'm going to Pembroke, and I said, oh, like how far was that? You know, that's how I got. I think that's how I got introduced to Pembroke, and and also to be fair, granted, I know I graduated 2016, but also these newer kids get all the good stuff compared to what we got. Yeah, I know when we first got there, so I know it's a couple of years other years that y'all when y'all get the McDonald's and then the Walmart, and I know when we was there, and I think there's a Pizza Hut there too. Well, at the time, there was a Pizza Hut there. But I know when I was graduating, they had just built the Bojangles there, and I was really pissed. 'Cause I was like, for years we've been here eating this McDonald's and da 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 for many different years now, and now they gonna put this up here now. It's funny now, and also
We were
we were so wrong, and I think a couple of years like last year, maybe 2 years ago, I took some high schools other to UNC Pembroke. And like when I went there to show them like the school, I was like, "Oh, we didn't get none of this." 'Cause, they had recently built like the new school of business. It's like the new center of the university now. I was like back then. I said we didn't even have this. Like this building's like
right.
with like $2.5 million. We had this little building over here to be able to go to, and then we don't watch out for puddles because it will flood over here. And then you go to downtown Pembroke, and
Yeah.
it really has extended. It's dope to see the growth.
Yeah, we used to have to drive to Lumberton and pay for those types of luxuries.
Yeah, we used to drive a good 10 minutes to cookout. We wanted to eat, and now they have one right at their disposal. That's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah.
I do remind like, especially like the younger brothers I do be having on the yard still. I often like y'all are lucky that y'all have it because we didn't have any of this. We had to drive down to Pembroke or Lumberton. But no, it's also good to still have like this own like
Yeah.
their own cozy restaurants up there too. Especially for the Lumbee culture up there. Shouts out to the Lumbee culture. Really good people that I know.
Yeah.
of that tribe. So I think with this next one, also like you, I know I kind of do have my ADHD moments also. So I like to gather back again. So with it being a magnificent Tuesday morning, how we feeling today from a 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being
I'll give it a solid 3. We're
a
gonna
solid 3.
cruise the middle. Yeah, it was a long weekend, and it's gonna be a long, short week for me. Lots of appointments and stuff to catch up on. So it's gonna feel like running the hamster wheel for the next 3 days, and I'm just starting it now.
Sometimes I mean, it's always good. I always appreciate people's honesty when it comes to things like this. And sometimes we do take mental health for granted, and also, we never know what everyone has going on. So it's always good to keep it. But even when you have a congested week like that, like, what do you do to kind of better, like, get your mental health involved, keep it in shape? Like, what are some of your self-care leisure activities you do? Like, what do you do to kind of?
Well, the unenjoyable self-care that I do is the therapy, right? But I do it twice a month. And the more fun self-care is I am into gardening. I've been transforming my backyard over the last several years into being my kind of little like vibey oasis. I have it set up to have almost the feel of like community garden type setup. I've got a bunch of raised beds that I'm growing lots of vegetables and flowers. Right now, I'm just a couple weeks out from my big sweet potato harvest. And this year is the first year that the potatoes I'm growing are sustainable based off of the ones I grew last year. So I didn't have to buy starter plants. I grew the slips for this year's harvest based off the potatoes I grew last year. And I feel like having this aspect of maybe a little bit more like control over my consumption and creation in it is good exercise and like mindfulness and sustainability. Also nice to be surrounded by butterflies and like be outside. And karaoke. I think I ran into you at WTF the last time I was there getting all my energy out.
I love it, and it's really interesting that you mentioned like the garden side of things. And it's like, I know, I know the person I am. I'm naturally just like impatient, and I entertain the thought of becoming like a plant dad. Just kind of like one. I try to be more in tune with nature, and also I want to be one of the people who are known for having a green thumb. A lot of black people, we like to reminisce a lot of different things we do and everything. So that's one thing I try to get underneath my belt. I'm actually like kind of terrible at it, but there's no excuse. I'm gonna get better at it. I do love the fact that and also it's kind of like a metaphor when people do talk about like your garden, like watering your garden, taking care of your garden and everything. But I do love it how it does tie into your self care. So that's really dope.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised. Some I have my like what I like to call chaos gardening, and when I'm too busy and I do neglect my garden, it's funny because occasionally I'll be like, "Oh, the season's over. It's fall. Like I'm just letting it go to die," and then I'll go outside to take my dog out or something, and it'll be a whole thing of kale, an eggplant, and I'm like, "These plants were fine on their own. Like it just
Yeah.
rained enough, and they just going." I mean, I think that's kind of always fun too. Like surprise cucumber, like I did nothing.
Yeah. Wow. Like, oh wow. Isn't that beautiful? Well, we know we kind of tackled it already because I'll kind of consider gardening as a hobby. But so I know you mentioned
Yeah,
karaoke. Karaoke, we had our moments in the past together with karaoke, but karaoke is a really good
I
outlet.
I can't hear you that well. Pop off
I'm
the
sorry.
screen.
Oh, my bad. My bad. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I'll try.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely no karaoke is of course karaoke is definitely fun. I think sometimes like I think as a person who's I know I'm a person out that I'm shy sometimes. And also maybe I know maybe some spirits will help me get to my next level. But karaoke is definitely like a good like what's the word I'm looking for? Dang, what's what I'm looking for?
Release
Oh,
me it.
yeah. So yeah, definitely. It kind of does tackle you want to be more extroverted, and that's maybe a little bit of the performer side. That's why I love karaoke, especially like spontaneously. Like if I'm
Yeah.
feeling if I'm feeling really good, I'm like, oh no, come on guys, let's go sing a song together. I remember my birthday for a couple of years ago. We had
Hmm.
sung the frat brothers. Me and my frat brothers had went out. It was for my birthday. And I know we were really like we were gone because clearly we were just like, oh, we don't ever do this. So we sung karaoke together. It was an NSYNC song, and I was like, oh, I know that we're here. Like this is like shut up behind. So that's always a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I
So
do
okay,
a lot of real big songs. I used to do musical theater back in school, so I'm a bit of like a glee nerd. I'm a little bit of a performance girly, but I also recently I saw a TikTok about why singing really loud like people do in the shower or like I do at karaoke is actually a form of somatic release. And so I tend to be I have diagnosed PTSD and I tend to not be very expressive with my feelings in my day to day. Kind of one of those like check on your strong friends type friends. Like I'm not
yeah.
one to have like big emotional expressive breakdowns or things like that if it's particularly stressful time period or things like that. But I will go and like bust some Adele out as like loud as I can, some Jasmine Sullivan or something like that. And for
Yeah.
me, there's a similar feeling and like having a big cry. And apparently there's some science behind that.
I didn't know that, but it would make sense, especially when it comes to like bridging and like that moment, especially with some Adele, because they'll be having music in the shower sometimes too. Lord knows, when I hear some turntables, oh, I'm loud in the bathroom. Ain't no shame in my
Yeah.
game at all. Ain't no shame in my game. So again, ADHD. Focus. So another so like I was saying, like to put me on to like some music, like who you listening to a lot. Also, like, what are some things that you're reading? Like fresh
Okay.
gems we like to read
Um,
over here.
yeah. So who I'm listening to, according to my Spotify year end, Young Miko is on super repeat. She's a lesbian reggaeton artist out of Puerto Rico.
Okay.
She's getting really big now. A couple of years ago, when I first got put onto her, she was kind of like a well kept secret in the like the intersection of the queer and the reggaeton listening community. But she's getting a lot of mainstream popularity now. Check out Lisa. That's a good song off her last album. I like. I also been listening to in preparation for this weekend to celebrate my birthday coming up. I'm going to Carolina Days Festival, which is a festival fundraiser mixture type thing that's going to benefit a bunch of really good social justice based nonprofits in the Triangle area. And the headliners are Janelle Monáe and Tierra Whack. So I've been doing a lot of streaming those artists and some of those
Yeah.
lesser known artists that are going to be at the festival. Kind of like get in the space for it. And reading again with the ADHD, I'm in between two books that I will pick up. Like I had a tattoo appointment recently, and so I was reading one, going back to reading one, and then just buying another. And I don't ever read one like start to finish all at once. And so, I'm reading a book on abolitionist theory by Angela Davis, um, about the necessity of questioning the necessity of prisons. And then I'm also reading Drew Afualo's kind of memoir style, sort of self-helpy. She's the Pacific Islander Samoan chick on TikTok that like rips into all of the like kind of machisto right winger guys that are like misogynistic and like call women fat on TikTok, and she like drags them. And she wrote a book that's a New York Times bestseller, and I like to support badass women, so I bought it.
Absolutely. Respectfully, we love a badass woman. I, and I think I like like when you mentioned like the right wing things. So one thing I find myself doing a lot, especially like these days, like I find myself getting in arguments with right wingers all the time, but it's only about sports, and it's like it's insane, especially like the WNBA. Because I've been on social media, and at this point, at one point, I just like, dude, that's out of pocket for you to say this or whatever. Now to the point where I think I just really just troll, and I'm like, I catch myself doing this a little too often, but it's kind of fun. But also, it's just crazy to see
Yeah.
how and of course, like people, people normally people like keep it sport about the sport, but sometimes it'd be hard to do it. Cause I'm like, y'all are really like mess up the sport for me. To each his own opinion. Especially when they get into
Yeah.
like the whole Caitlin Clark debate and the Angel Reese debate. I'm like, come on, like, golly, like y'all been watching the sport last
Yeah.
year, and also, I mean, it's some good things that come with Caitlin Clark. Honestly, I don't mind both. I love the competition of the sport now, especially the sport is on the rise now. It's still projected to do now with more influx of young talent, but I do find myself trolling on social media more these days. So eventually, I got myself on social media. I'm like, too crazy. Or we probably put somebody in their place via
Yeah.
a Facebook message.
It's tough. It's tough because 17-year-old Jacksonville me would clap back at everything all the time. And then I have to pick and choose just for time and resource reasons and my own mental health. But it makes me think of that scene. I could really relate to that scene from the Dear White People series where the main character was trolling in a debate on Twitter and ended up staying up the whole night and not doing the things that she needed to do for school the next day because she got so involved in this back and forth with kind of like a right-wing troll that was just really poking at her, and kind of like that's sort of what they wanted, right? Is to exhaust somebody who's making a good point and had a platform already from doing the things that they were doing that were picking up speed. And so I try to be mindful about how, but it's hard. It is hard, especially when I have a license to maintain, and we're supposed to. The state bar says we got to have a certain decorum. But like,
I
the
get it.
closer I get to paying off my student loans, I'm gonna be like, look, once these student loans are paid off, which is coming soon, I'm gonna care a lot less about respectability politics. I already don't that much, but I do have to try to limit my how much I feed into trolls, but sometimes people need to be told, and I think people will think that you won't tell them once you get to a certain level where the respectability politics also are supposed to affect your bag, like having a license or something like that, where
Yeah.
like you're kind of still constrained in a certain way. It's a way to read somebody intelligently and respectfully and still not cross any professional boundaries. And so that's the lane where I where I play in.
And ironically, I think that's the word that I needed today because I know, especially like a lot of my close friends, I know they kind of go through their own like periods and stuff. And also, I think it's a good, nice little way to segue into our next part of the put me on section. So like I like to call this new section "Put Me on Blast." So like kind of like just get it off your chest. Like what we were just knowing just now. So like put us on blast. Like get it off your chest. Like what grinds your gears, or like what's an interesting take that you have that you like to share, and not much of a mind too.
Okay. Well, every time I do like a know your rights in the community, a lot of times when I am invited to speak, I try to stay in the lane of what it is that I do, right? I'm not an immigrant, so I don't speak on the experiences of directly affected communities, but I will speak on the law. So I've been a licensed immigration attorney for over 13 years at this point, right? And so whenever I give these speeches at colleges or things like that, I always do a quick little section of dispelling myths about immigration law, the immigrant community, things like that. First of all, um, the idea that the immigrant community does not pay taxes or some sort of a leech on the economy of this country is wholly and entirely false, right? Undocumented people do pay taxes. There's something called an individual taxpayer ID number, an ITIN, that when you don't have a social security number, you can obtain by filling out a form, providing your information to the IRS. And most people trying to get some sort of immigration status generally are going to be judged on their moral character and whether they have or have not been paying taxes, regardless of the fact that they're undocumented in this community. And folks are doing that. That being said, while they're doing that, so much of their wages are going into Social Security, which is already broken in our country, right? The boomers kind of killed it for the rest of us. But undocumented people who pay their taxes, and even if they weren't filing tax returns, right, they're being paid in paychecks, and good chunk of that money is going into Social Security. And guess who that's going to? Us, American citizens, right, who can take out of Social, well, mostly our parents, right, since tapping out. But there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that is keeping Social Security Administration afloat, keeping that afloat, that those people cannot cash in on at any point. Unless you are a lawful permanent resident or citizen, you could work your whole life, pay taxes, have taxes withdrawn from your payroll, and never get access to Social Security. Anchor babies is not a real thing. People thinking people coming here to have kids to bless them with citizenship. You have to be 21 years old before you can even petition a parent. And if that parent came into the country without status, like crossing the border unlawfully, once that baby, that anchor, turns 21, that parent would then have to depart the country to go to the country that they're from, and would face at least a 10-year bar before they could come back. No one is coming here to wait 21 years, to separate from their kid for 10 years, to maybe hopefully get a green card one day. It's just like not a thing. These are all sort of racist dog whistles. And you'll notice, especially around contentious election times like that, right? The loudest white supremacist in the room likes to pit communities that are already disenfranchised against each other. So you will see the Trump administration saying things that are anti-immigrant rhetoric, supposedly in support of the Black community, right? These illegal immigrants are coming to take the Black jobs, right? Yeah, and it's not pie, right? And it's a really old tactic, and I could go on and on and on about the myths of the undocumented community in this country, or people always telling me, well, I did it the right way, without even knowing what is the way, right? What form do you fill out? How long is that? What line can people even get into? Not even recognizing that certain countries, white European countries, have the ability to come to the United States without a visa, where people from predominantly Black and brown countries would have to apply for a tourist visa. A lot of these countries having a really high denial rate, right? So if you ever get curious, Google the visa waiver program and take a look at the list of countries that have the ability to come to the United States without a tourist visa, and then start to ponder what those countries have in common.
That's crazy. I think that's a great reason why I definitely wanted to have you as a guest today, because especially with law, because law is I know me personally. I know compared to when I was drinking the versus now, like law is definitely something that should be taught, especially at a younger age, and especially with today's coaching and everything. But I love the when you have like the immigration law stats behind it, because there is this spelling of myths that we're used to hearing. And also I do like how you mentioned like the rhetoric of like pinning a group against another group, which we see often in like the Black jobs comment. And it's funny now just to think about how like you have mentioned like you've been the first gen at Pembroke to now like I just did law just to kind of get up out of here in school. That now it's awesome to see blossom into your journey as into doing immigration law and everything. But I love that. I love that. That's a very good put me on blast, because that's actually kind of the next person I want to kind of dive into more of the conversation. But I guess it's under my word. I think I'll do my put me on blast part. And I think something that's been grinding my gears often, and it's I don't know, maybe some growth I need to do on my own end, but also maybe it's not. But I think especially when it comes to like conflict, it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me when people be like, "Oh, we got to turn the other cheek, and we got to do it the Jesus way. This is that." But sometimes I've been wondering, like, what if God wants us to put this person in check? And I'm still the person I am. I think I'm still trying to maneuver that, because like, do it. What would God do? Turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek. And sometimes I'm like, man, fuck that. Our ancestors don't turn the cheeks now, or now we the liberty we can say what we want to say, what we do, what we want to do. But also, some people need to be checked. And I don't care if it's about white supremacy. I don't care about black gatekeeping. Like, you need to get checked. You need to get checked. And I can check you out with words, or I can
Yeah.
check you out with this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if you start to deconstruct respectability politics, which is where all of that is birthed from, to, you know, when they go low, we stay high, all that type of energy, you know, is not to say that we should just be out here acting our ass, but like the respectability politics, when you get down to deconstructing it, all have bases in white supremacy and patriarchal bullshit, basically. And so I agree with you that like the conflict is necessary, and it also doesn't always have to be negative, right? Uh, as a white person that moves in, you know, plenty of spaces that are not meant to center white people, there's a level of having to be okay with being called out, with being gently reminded, being not so gently reminded, right? There's a level of conflict that you need to be comfortable with to exist in community, especially if you're raised in a space or in a culture that, you know, oppresses certain communities. The conflict is a tool for people to coexist and to better understand. And if we're all so defensive all the time about, you know, being told like, hey, that's inappropriate, or like, hey, that's not for you, or like, hey, maybe you don't need to be the center of attention here, or whatever
Yeah.
it is, right? That's not a horrible thing, right? It allows people to understand their lanes and stay in their lanes, and then also like build more meaningful and deep relationships with people, because if you care about somebody, you will let them know, hey, that's a boundary, or hey, that's, you know, there's conflict in that, but the best relationships move forward positively with conflict.
Completely agree. And I do love how you did, you know, the ethos that you definitely did hit on, because you know that some people do need to be gently reminded of, hey, this has offended me, or this is the boundary, or I'm not okay with you saying that. Funny enough, that kind of reminded me of the conversation that I had when Letty was on here, actually, when Letty was a guest on here, and we kind of talked about that for a little bit. Then it delved into a 3 hour conversation. 'Cause you know how we get to talking, we get to churning, and we like, you know what? Let me tell you about this time. Let me tell you about this time. But of course,
Mm-hmm.
as I interview you right now, I love you got inspired to create a shirt, and I want to make a shirt that just says something like "Badass Women Protects the Country," because that's the vibe this conversation is getting. Like, it's, you know, I love it. I love it. Okay, let
I'm
me say
glad of letting definitely, you know, say what needs to be said when it needs to be said. And I've seen people try to tone police her when she is saying what needs to be said in rooms where people have been holding their tongue a little too long. And people would like to say, you know, well, you catch more flies with honey type energy, but like that's it was tone policing that I witnessed, and she will call a thing, and the result of those conversations I've physically watched transform organizations for the better, or meetings for the better, uh, because she stood 10 toes down instead of playing into kind of Odin respectability politics, you know?
yeah, yeah, that's my dog right there. She definitely a trooper, and she's not alone, because I know that sometimes when people often have to remind other people, like, you know, like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But you're not, so not, again, you're not gonna tone check me, also tone police me, which I love that tone. I'm gonna need y'all. I think I should just come up with a dictionary of just like, oh, you know, I haven't heard this verbiage before. Let's do a definition of that. That'd be really dope. But also, but
Yeah.
I'm on that conversation, because I'm gonna tie it into something else, because that's a good question to ask before I drop what you based on. So again, as we were talking about, you know, the journey into immigration law, and I know you're sharing, distilling like some of the myths that's normally centered around immigration law and everything. I kind of just want to ask about like the importance when it comes to immigration law and voting, like things like that. Because I know there's always, people just assume one thing, and people don't know that they don't have the hard facts about when it comes to voting, and then also like the impact of people of unique people of like the brown community not voting and everything. So something along the lines of that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna caveat all of this by saying, right, that like the illusion of choice in this country is like way past pretending like it's not a thing, right? I describe myself as a leftist, um, more than a Democrat, but obviously I vote Democrat, right? But that's in the understanding that where I am ideologically is lefter than what we have going on. I feel like the Democrats of today are the Republicans of yesterday. The Republicans of today is just the KKK, and like we're all kind of just fighting for our lives. And just because it feels that sort of like we don't have control over the political ideology being basically like three corporations in a trench coat and dragging more and more to the right, uh, tends to make people apathetic, but like we shouldn't be, especially when it comes to like municipal elections too. Local elections are really important, and I think people get geared up every 4 years for the federal elections, and then we just like forget that the things that affect our day to day quite a bit happen in the interim in those municipal elections. So immigration wise, like I said, I've been a licensed immigration attorney for over 13 years, which means that I started out in the Obama years. I voted for Obama, was the first president I was able to vote for. I did it twice. At the risk of sounding like the parents from Get Out, right? Like I voted for Obama twice, but uh, I recall in those days feeling like I had all these tools in my toolbox to defend people from deportation. Um, there was a little bit more of a sense of like a game that I could play, like you have your prosecutors, and I am akin to like a defense attorney, right? And there were things that I could really do to help people to defend them from deportation, to help give people status. But at the same time, we were protesting Obama quite a bit because there were plenty of deportations. Like I said, I'm all the way over here, right?
Yeah.
I'm never going to be on the harsh enforcement side, right? When we had the Trump years, it was literally people would ask me, what's it like being an immigration attorney under Trump? And I would say, well, it's like my office is on fire, my house is everything's on fire, and I have the world's tiniest dollar store squirt gun, and I'm just trying really, really hard to put out fires all the time, and waiting for it to be over. And we see a lot of people are like, well, how can a president change so much, right? They can't pass law. Like, what does that actually change? Quite a bit, right? Immigration law is really hard to change as far as like statutory law, right? The last real big, like comprehensive immigration reform type legal change happened in 1996 with immigration reform, blah, blah, blah. It's called IRA. It's that's the acronym. I can't remember the whole thing, but since 1996, there haven't been any actual major like transformative laws passed in the Immigration Nationality Act. So what we see is a lot of policy changes. And so the way I explain it to my clients or people in the community is like, say at your job, right? There are laws that are like OSHA safety laws and like workers' compensation laws. There are laws that that company has to follow, the employees have to follow, right? But then the boss or the owner or the person who's in charge of the company, they can pass their own rules so long as they're not in conflict with existing laws, right? So you might have an OSHA law on a job site that says you have to wear these types of shoes, or you can't not be paying people overtime. Like that boss can't change those things. But that boss could say, um, if you take too long on your lunch break, you're going to get fired, or whatever these like internal policies are, right? Like, and as long as they don't conflict with law, they can limit as much as they really want. And so what happens is when a new president comes in, they're the head of the executive, which is in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security breaks into both who gives the green cards, right? USCIS, like who gives the green cards, who gives the work permits. Same agency is also who deports people, like who rounds people up with
Yeah.
ICE, who puts them into deportation court, right? And so every time we get a new president, they'll make a policy or a memo like, this is who we should focus on to put into deportation court, or this is who we shouldn't focus on. And under the Trump administration, it was everybody, like literally everybody. So like under Obama, his policy as far as like, because ICE is over-resourced, the courts, like if someone gets put into deportation court now, they might not have a trial for 3, 4, 5 years. So like the backlog is already so big that throwing folks into this giant funnel that's already full, right? When they're not a priority, let's say for like any criminal history reasons or national security reasons, right? You're greater increasing this backlog. And then if you claim, for example, like Trump likes to claim, I'm hard on immigration, right? Okay, so you have this big funnel, and say in this funnel were a lot of people in removal for really heinous, like criminal incidents or something like that, right? But you're putting every grandma, everyone who forgot to renew their DACA, everyone who had TPS, but you canceled it for hundreds of thousands of people in there. It's taking longer for everyone, you know? So it changes a lot of things. Municipal elections change as far as like some states will allow people to have licenses, right? Like I do traffic defense for people who get pulled over for driving while brown, and no operator's license, but let's call it what it is, right? If there isn't another corollary offense that went with that, not like speeding and no operator's license, or you got into a car accident and didn't have a license, just get pulled over, not at any type of like a checkpoint for no license. What was the reason for the stop? How did you presume this person just didn't have a license to stop them in the first place, to cite them with that, right? And I'll see, some DAs will just throw it out. Other DAs are like, well, they shouldn't be driving, so I don't. But it's like, okay, but we as a state have the power, like many other states, to let folks get licenses regardless of their immigration status. And if folks were able to, it's not for lack of wanting to, it's us criminalizing on a state level being undocumented, which is not the state's responsibility to do. Immigration enforcement is a federal thing. So like we're creating additional obstacles to then complain about them, right? And our state legislature has the power to fix that. In-state tuition for people who have DACA, or people who have TPS or who are in an immigration status that's not permanent, right? You have kids that have legal immigration status with DACA, but in North Carolina, they can't get in-state tuition. So I've had friends and assistants who've lived in North Carolina longer than I have, because recall I grew up in Japan, right? That wouldn't be able to go to UNCW and not be charged like they're from Montana or somewhere else and pay double, triple the tuition. These things are all affected by elections.
Goodness, yeah, wow, that again, like I said, mentioned earlier, like I know that is kind of things that you don't even really know. And again, like that level of awareness is really important, especially to like a city that is so populated with that does take pride in having diverse populations, especially people around population. Okay, I know it's gonna be a little over the time that I said we was gonna do. So I'm kind of just gonna actually maybe like two more questions because you kind of got into it pretty well. So can you so basically like what's kind of been like the biggest lesson you've learned, the biggest challenge you have also had while you were setting out on faith and building your own practice?
To just do it, honestly. To be cliche, like to do it scared, right?
Yeah.
I had intended to go into the public service sector. I did all nonprofit internships, but when I was graduating, the only job being advertised on PS LawNet, which is like the job hosting site for like nonprofit immigration attorneys or nonprofit attorneys of any type. When I was graduating in 2011, the only immigration job being advertised in the public sector, at least in North Carolina at that time, was working for DHS. So essentially deporting people as a prosecutor, right? Like the ops. So obviously, I switched sectors and I worked for a private firm. I worked for two different private firms, and it was a really rough experience for me. Um, they kind of just wanted to be the Walmart, the McDonald's of law firms. They wanted any and everybody's case, regardless of it was good. Clients were a number. Being employed in those spaces, especially as a woman, were not necessarily healthy and welcoming environments, from sexual harassment to, dropping health insurance while I was pregnant, which happened to multiple female attorneys I've seen. And so, I kind of just got so angry at work one day. I went on my lunch break and I went to the state employees and I got me a money order and I filled out the Secretary of State Articles of Incorporation, and I went to the post office and I mailed it out, and I came in and I told my favorite paralegal at that law firm, and I said, well, I got good news and bad news. She said, damn it, what is it? And I'm like, well, I think I just started a law firm, and I just did it pissed off on my lunch break. And then I put my 2 weeks in like that same week, and I had no capital. I had no clients. I had a 1-year-old baby and a failing marriage at that time. And I just was so fed up that I didn't go to school for all them years and spend all that money, because the scholarship was only for undergrad. I had about, if not more than, 200,000 worth of student loans as a first generation college student. And I was not being paid very much at all, while managing an entire immigration department and driving 2+ hours every day to one of their 7 offices all over the place. I had run myself so ragged, I ended up in the ER with some sort of something at one point that I think was just exhaustion, right? And I decided to just do it myself. And it was sort of just like, I just kept telling myself, the universe puts you right where you're supposed to be, right when you're supposed to be there. So in the first months of me having my own law firm, I got separated from my spouse. I was in a new city here in Wilmington where I had like no friends or community. I had a giant daycare bill. I had rent that needed to get paid. And when I was having clients, I was also learning as a first year business owner, taxes are a lot. Oh, so I remember getting a tax bill and it was more than the money that I had in the bank account. But that very next weekend, so many clients came to hire for their cases. I made just enough money on a Saturday to pay that tax bill. Yeah. And that just kept happening again and again and again, which for me always felt validation, even on days like today. This is a stressful day for me, that when you are kind of walking in your purpose, when you're doing right by your staff and your clients and your community members, and when you get so uncomfortable in a stagnant place that you like accept it and say, you know what, this is uncomfortable for a reason. I'm not supposed to be here. And you kind of step out even when it's scary. It's all it'll be taken care of.
That's definitely a powerful testament to entrepreneurship, and also I'm in your own law firm and everything. And I love, it's crazy how you did come out saying like, oh, I'm just so pissed off at work, and like how the level of being pissed off took you to this new journey that you're definitely impacting the lives of many people, especially for a great purpose. So kudos to you on that, definitely. And you definitely get a number one fan of me, definitely, just to tell your story alone. Again, I know you have all these meetings stuff coming, so I'm asking 2 more questions. Kind of simple. But what can we do as people to better support you, Ms. Vanessa Gonzalez, and Ms. Vanessa Gonzalez Law. What can we do best to support you?
I would just say to continue to support the kind of the mission of the things that my office does, as well as, while my office does immigration law, I do work in the community that has nothing to do with immigration law. And, we're all intersected in the struggle to kind of free ourselves, our neighbors, and our community from all forms of oppression. And we all have different circles of influence, right? So, the work that I do just in my private capacity as an attorney gets its own fair share of hate online. We got a hate postcard to the office one time. I'm wasn't that popular in certain sectors of the community back in 2020 when I was out loud giving speeches at Thalian Hall, when I was doing pro bono criminal defense of people arrested at protests, right? But we all have a lane, and I have a law degree, and that's the lane that I use and I choose. And when I'm in rooms where maybe other people who are more directly affected by things are not in, I speak up and I educate to the best that I'm aware. And so if you find yourself in spaces where, some of the things we talked about today, you're now aware that like the anchor baby thing is a myth, or like this thing about taxes or whatnot. I have a lot of friends that say, oh, I wanted to get into a debate with that person, but I just don't know how to say it like you, Vanessa. You don't have to be a speechwriter. You don't have to be a politician. You don't have to be a lawyer to speak when you know something's incorrect. And I think that we're in this like social media era of, if your voice shakes, or if you don't have this like Candace Owens, I think I know everything, even though I'm saying bullshit attitude behind you,
Yeah.
that suddenly there's this like gotcha. Like, no, if you know that you're correct, use your circles of influence. And even if you gotta Google what you're saying to dispel things, have those conversations and include undocumented folks in those conversations. Back to the voting thing, one of the things that I've said at many a women's march rally is that I always see women doing well, if you don't vote, then you can't say nothing, you've got nothing to say. And then I get up and I give my speech and say, stop saying that. This
Yeah.
vote or die shit is old. And when I'm standing next to a woman at the same rally who has DACA and can't vote because she's not a United States citizen, but she's helping organize that rally, her women's rights are just as affected in this country. Like, we need to realize that we're operating, when we talk about voting, we're operating from a place of privilege, citizen privilege, right? And not everybody has the privilege to vote. It doesn't mean that they don't contribute to the same movement, or they don't contribute to the community as well. So be more mindful and inclusive as well of our words. I think there's a lot of conversation around equity when it comes to, race and sexuality and other things. And then sometimes I think people, unless you're really in communities of mixed status, tend to not operate from a place of thinking like, hey, not everyone around me has the same privileges that I do as a US citizen, and perhaps my language can be more inclusive, and the work that I do can be more inclusive as well.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And also, I think, well, kind of this question again, to kind of, once again, I know you on the time. But also, next question, what's next for you? What's next for Miss Vanessa Gonzalez Law? What's next on the horizon for you? You have any events coming up? Events you plan on being at?
My firm turns 10
Oh,
this upcoming November. We are going to be out at the concert amphitheater place, not this upcoming weekend, but the weekend after, at Cape Fear Latinos Festival. Cape Fear Latinos is a nonprofit here in Wilmington that is putting on a big festival for the community. And so the firm will be out there as a sponsor, giving out koozies and free legal advice and gifts to the kids and stuff. And then I will just continue doing the work that I'm doing until these student loans are hopefully paid off, and try to quietly garden until I'm called to go be loud on somebody's microphone for the next time.
Love that. I love that. Yeah, and please, whenever you get more information about that, please send me a flyer because I like to post that. I know I went to the one last year and I had a really good time there. It was really the Latin festival. It was really, I actually loved it. I probably go back again because I did have a good time. 'Cause I know you said you do it in the amphitheater. Yeah, because that's about the new space downtown they kind of built and cultivated. I
Yeah,
love it. I
I
love
think it's
it.
gonna be pretty.
Yeah, 'cause last year was lit. I loved it. It was a good time. And I remember we went there, and then I remember I went like to the Husky. I was watching college football, so everything was.
Yeah, it's dangerous when they got it downtown.
It is. It's always something going on. But definitely, I want to thank you for being today's guest, and also I want to thank you for the level of insight you given us today. Like I think there is a lot of unknown knowns that we have definitely discovered today. So I greatly appreciate you for that, and also congratulations to you for hitting your 10-year mark. 10 years is it's a decade of success. From going from being that young lady who was pissed off with her job to F it, I'm gonna make my own part. I'm gonna make my own job and do my own thing. And I just imagine the life of clients you've definitely impacted. So kudos to you on that. We're gonna wish you a lot more than just 10 more years, but 10 more years, time 10 more years, time 10 more years, and that. So keep doing the things you're doing. We're always in your corner. And also enjoy your birthday that's coming up too. Virgo energy. Virgo.
Thank you. Yep, last day of Virgo.
Whew. Oh, you were really right there. Virgo. Virgo, then it's Libra, then it's Libra. Okay, cool. Gotcha. You're not cusp. I know. I can see both. I see both characteristics. So I got you. But thank you for being a
Yeah,
guest
I'm on the
today.
cusp.
You're on the cusp. But thank you for being a guest today. We greatly appreciate you. We wish you nothing unlimited success. And I'm sure I'll see you around the city whenever I'm next time I'm in Wilmington.
Thank you, love.
Have a good day. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you today. That was a very eye-opening conversation.